Hello, friends, and welcome to the Weekend Catch-Up Club, the coffee morning show brought to you live every Saturday, direct to Facebook and Twitch, and available later on demand at podcast services and youtube.com/gamertagged. Grab some snacks, grab a cup of coffee or drink, hang out with us for just a little bit, because today I am joined by the head of influencer relations at Dead Good PR, Jake Kulkowski.
Hello. Hi, Ross. Thank you very much for the warm welcome.
You are most welcome.
My eyes glanced nervously towards my empty cup of coffee when you said grab a drink. I thought you were talking to me for a second, and I was like, oops.
It could be something stronger if you really need it. I won't judge. I promise.
Yeah, and for anyone listening, we're recording this at 8:00 at night.
Absolutely. It's after the watershed, so it's respectable, right? So, Jake, how are you doing? It's been a very busy little time for you, I would imagine, because the launch of Biomutant is, at the time of recording this, launches today, right?
It certainly does. It launches in a couple of hours. So yeah, Biomutant is one of the 3 launches I'm responsible for this week. Not me entirely. There's a whole team. As you know, the video game industry is like a huge team effort. But me and my team are sort of heading up a lot of countries' influencer relations outreach for Biomutant, which has been like a hotly anticipated game for a couple of years. So I've come into work today to about literally over 200 content creators have covered it pre-launch already. So
wow.
They're content creators that we've provided a code to, right? So that ends up getting put into a little coverage report from ourselves. So and I imagine in the next couple of days it's going to be triple that. So,
it's pretty hectic, I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, we work on a lot of projects, probably close to 60 a year, which is more than one a week. But Whoa. Believe it or not many people know that. But Biomutant seems to be one of the busiest ones this year. I think Disco Elysium, may just edge it in terms of because Disco Elysium, it was just us handling the entire global outreach. So wow. Disco Elysium, for context, in case you don't know, is like a CRPG made by Studio Zaum, and it's I think at the time of recording on Metacritic, it's like the joint first spot of all time, up there with Half-Life 2 now. The reviews are great for it, and it's, I think, PC Gamer's #1 PC game of all time. So it came to PC in late 2019, and it just came out like the definitive edition. So they voice acted the full game, which has got 2.1 million words, which is like the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit put together times 2, by the way. So that was a crazy one because everyone kind of wanted to see what the fuss was about. But Biomutant's a little different because it's got like this whole like fancy schmancy marketing push. Like it's been on Conan O'Brien, and there's names like PewDiePie have been playing it. So it's like and there's all these like special collector's editions going out. So everybody has been on to us about it. So yeah, very, very busy time.
That must be wild. So we'll get into the specifics of managing that and what that looks like. But first of all, I want to hear all about Jake Kolkowski. How did you get started? And then maybe go into who Dead Good PR are. Over to you.
Okay, it's a very unorthodox story. That's a word my friend MC Fixer called me once, and I stick to that, actually. So the story goes something like this. I was playing this game called Divinity Original Sin, watching PlayStation Access on the side, and I was like, I'd love to do that because no one's talking about this game. Anyway, I live in North Wales, which is like a very beautiful area, which has been very reliant on tourism and its hospitality services. A lot of people come here to retire, to get married, and I guess back in the day, people visited this seaside town next to me called Rhyl a lot. But it's really cheap to go abroad and stuff now. So the area that I live isn't like very affluent in terms of like media or tech. So there was just like a unpaid internship at a media company around here, which is super rare. So I applied for it and I got it. And it was actually just basically a YouTube channel that was being run as a business. And it was called Pretty Good Game. And there was about 8,000 subscribers. And I was an intern for a couple of months there, and I edited videos, YouTube videos, and me and about 4 other employees were on a sort of cycle of editing, writing, hosting stuff. And the channel grew in a year and a half from about 8,000 to about 320,000 followers.
Wow.
Some months we were averaging about 14 million views, about 500,000 views a day. And during that time, we were often on a news cycle, just sort of trawling through and making a video, because I guess it's just a way that people kind of engage with news these days. But me and a friend of mine who worked there, we made a video about Divinity Original Sin 2. And I think to this day, it's still the most watched video on the internet about it, right? So it did pretty well. And because of that, we drew the attention of this, I don't know, Dead Good PR or something, some PR agency, and they invited us down to the press tour of the definitive edition of the game, which was, we were the only people who weren't like traditional press, like we were just YouTubers, and we went down. Oh my gosh, they paid for our train. I got to leave, it's like leaving the Shire, Frodo and Sam, me and my friends. We went there and we viewed it and blah, blah. And so I met this guy, Matthew Pellet, who worked at Dead Good. And I respected him because, and I'll come back to this in a way in a little bit, but when we were a growing channel, I noticed that a lot of like PR companies and stuff put us on like a mailing list, and there was only 4 of us there, but we were working flat out, sometimes editing, recording and releasing 2 videos a day, and we were getting sent approximately 30 games a week, which is like 4 games a day. And I suppose if you're a giant outlet like IGN, that would make sense because you can distribute those keys to certain members of staff. But it's just really not feasible for YouTubers. And I didn't really understand, how did we even get on this press release? I didn't ask. I was having to find an unsubscribe button at the bottom. But I did find it odd. But anyway, this guy, Matt, it seemed to actually know that I like Divinity. And that was a real shock to me. So anyway, long story short, my time at Pretty Good Gaming came to an end. The company, I think, was a victim of what they call the adpocalypse on YouTube. So we all got made redundant. In fact, all of the employees there, we now have our own podcast called Special Moves. But I actually got a call from Matt at Dead Good about a job. Or did I call him? I can't remember. But we ended up speaking about there was a job, and it was like basically like a PR assistant. I don't even think it was influencer relations. I'm pretty sure it wasn't actually.
Back then it might not have been. Yeah.
I don't think it was. So I applied, and this is a huge stereotype here, but I was like, okay. Every time I meet somebody in the games industry, they're all cleanly shaven, quite polite, from the south of England, and I live in the middle of nowhere, in between a couple of valleys. There's no way on planet Earth I'm getting this job. But I applied for it. Obviously, I got it. And then, the job then really mutated. So I carved out this position. But essentially, my start in the industry was that. So the very, very abridged version is I played this game called Divinity Original Sin 2. It got some interest. I met the PR people. I thought, wow, I'd like to do that rather than be on YouTube and reading comment sections all day. And I took a chance and somehow passed the persuasion check, and I got the job. So from there, really, this is like a real testament to Dead Good. So Matt and Stu, who's the company director, clearly took a chance on me. But what I loved from the very, very get-go, I had no industry experience. I have no sort of training. I don't even know what business school is. I don't even know what, do you have to wear a suit for that? I don't know. I don't know anything about that, but I know about being a YouTuber, and I know what it kind of means to speak to people and that. And so they really gave me an opportunity to kind of adjust how we were doing things from the get-go, which is something that I think a lot of people aren't really afforded. And because of that opportunity and that respect that I felt, like I really ran with the idea, and we started doing things a little bit differently. It was just me for from March 2019 when I started until this year in January, where I have 2 amazing co-workers now who assist me. They're both based in Canada, one in Toronto and one in Saskatoon. We're a team now, and it's crazy. We That's how I started, really, from watching PlayStation Access on my phone to that. Yeah,
that's fascinating because it's so insightful to say you were editing and creating YouTube videos, and now you're quite in a senior position at a PR company for video games, and it just shows you how much marketing has had to shift and pivot for the industry as it is now, the way audiences are interacting with content, getting their information about content on social media, rather than the institutional media outlets as what we kind of maybe think of in our youth, whether it be Nintendo Entertainment Monthly, when we used to get magazines like the PC Gamer magazines. It used to be all that. There was no real social media. Well, I mean, I'm a good bit older than you, so I'm going way back now, but it has completely changed. It's like videos on TikTok, videos on Facebook and Twitter and Twitch, of course, as well, as seeing the people playing the games is how a lot of people make their assessment now of whether or not they want to pick something up and play it.
You're totally right. And so my colleague Matt, who deals entirely with the press side of things at Good, right? He's one of a couple of account managers, directors, and such. And he was the lead editor of the official PlayStation magazine for a couple of years. Which a magazine, for those listening, it's kind of like a website, but it's printed out, and you have to like flip the pages.
What is this physical thing in front of me? What's that?
He regales me with stories sometimes about how he had written pieces, and it's genuinely fascinating, which is really funny. It must make him feel really old. But it's like, you know, when he's talking about like having to like pitch a feature, but he had to get the dimensions of the paper and stuff like that, or like how you had to go about getting stickers made and stuff. Oh, it's like it's like a different world. And so quite rightly, like they wouldn't have let me into this industry, I don't think, if the words of YouTube weren't so powerful. And even now, like since my time, like YouTube is really taking a bit of a back seat sort of thing compared to Twitch. That's really where a lot of focus seems to be in terms of like campaigns, and when you're talking to people who are maybe more on the development side or somebody on a publishing team, they've heard of Twitch and they want to do that, you know, like so it's there for them.
Yeah. How challenging is it to make that shift into a different type of marketing drive, which is entirely tailored toward influencers and Twitch audiences?
I think the purity of what I do is that I am born of that school, right? So when I've had conversations with people who are, you know, maybe ex-Ubisoft, working in new positions or whatever, they're talking in all of these words that I'm just like, I've got a second monitor and I'm Googling CPM, this and that. I had to learn on my feet really fast. I found that like it's a very difficult thing because the tangibility of purpose and the tangibility of like the results, quite hard to gauge. Like it's very hard to like embed stuff into a Twitch stream to get a click-through rate and to see a direct shift of wish lists. If, you know, with Biomutant yesterday, we had like 150 people on at one time. So if the wish lists increased, do we know where they were from? No, like there's no real way. And when you're valuing that, it's difficult. And in terms of like how a lot of influencers market themselves in terms of their media decks and things, it used to be follow account, you know, completely based on reach. YouTubers still do that, you know, at 1.4 million subscribers. But with Twitch, it's sort of shifted to sort of concurrent viewership and things like that. So these are things that are very desirable at the moment, I think, to certain people. But again, like, what does that necessarily mean? If 50 people are watching the game at once, is that 50 engaged people? And is that more valuable than 700 concurrent viewers? Or somebody like Carnage, who streamed Biomutant yesterday, he had like, I think 24,000 concurrent viewers. But 24,000 concurrent viewers is his average. That's what Carnage could literally like go live, paint in a wall, and people would watch it because he is like, he's reached where everyone wants to be, where he can show up, do what he wants, you know, whereas a lot of other streamers, I don't think they've kind of got a grasp that a lot of the time their viewers are almost like their stakeholders, you know, they're shareholders, you know, they're making the decisions for them as because if you play a game that you're enjoying, but they're not, like Path of Exile or some like spreadsheet simulator or whatever. Some people will just jump off it. So yeah, it's really difficult because I think values are being perceived completely differently by influencers and then by publishers. Some publishers really value just straight reach because it makes for a great report at the end. Some want to see the exact views, and some value sentiment. Well, okay, this guy gets 50,000 views, but his fan base is like a lot of trolls or edgy teenagers, and so it's completely dependent on who we work with, really. But I think that's one of the changes I've noticed is that, like, because it's like a bit of a wild west, every publisher has its kind of own metric that they gauge as successful, really. So a lot of my job is really tapping into that first of all, trying to figure out, okay, what is it that they're interested in? Are they interested in the sort of end result numbers, or do they want general sentiment to, like, maybe share some videos on socials or something like that? I guess that might have changed a little bit than when you're getting ad space in a newspaper. It's just, all right, how many eyes is this going to be on? It doesn't matter whose eyes. If it's an old lady on a train or a family of 4 on a train to Manchester or whatever, doesn't matter. But with a bit more of an understanding of who's watching which type of content, I think figuring out who's watching is just as important now as, or just more important, I guess, than ever. How many people are watching? A Times Square billboard is probably less relevant than getting 100,000 anime fans to watch your pre-roll ad on an anime-focused channel, I suppose.
Yeah, that's actually really encouraging that you say that, because you talk about the difference between reach and engagement. And if you are a smaller channel that clearly cannot ever compete with the Ninjas or the Kolkowskis, they're never going to get 10,000, 20,000 concurrent viewers. But if they have maybe between that 50 to 100 concurrent viewers and only maybe a couple of thousand followers, if that audience that they've cultivated is highly engaged, they're asking loads of questions about the game, and that person is saying, like, I really like this game and this is why I like it, they're giving more of an in-depth analysis of, like, why they like the product, and that can be significantly more valuable than just a mega streamer just saying, hey, I got this game, I'm checking it out, I don't know anything about it. And it's more just, they're just kind of raising awareness of this game is out, and that's kind of where that ends in terms of engagement for their audience. But this much, much smaller channels can be more impactful. And I guess, as you said, it all comes down to what is the metric that you're trying to gain from aligning with X influencer at any given stage of the marketing strategy.
Yeah, you're dead right. I think one thing you find is, like, more specifically kind of indie publishers, I suppose, that they are focused on these sort of, like, I guess the word's micro influencers or whatever. I think that's the marketing term again. That's another one I was Googling. A micro influencer. But I think that, like, a lot of people who follow maybe smaller creators, and when I mean smaller, I mean not ninja size, which is considered smaller to some people. Those streamers are less performers and more curators, I suppose, is the word I would say, because there's so many games out that are vying for your time. Games are getting longer, especially AAA offerings. Games are now well expensive. Returnal was like 70 quid or whatever it was. And it's like, whoa, you buy 2 or 3 games, you spend like £200. That's a holiday when everything eases up, isn't it? So in some places. It's, and there's a lot of noise at the moment. So, like, no matter what the game is, it's getting reviewed by X magazine. I think, the way that people have shifted is that they kind of try to find somebody that they trust. And I think the reason that people go for a lot of YouTubers specifically is because it's one particular person. So, like, if you look at, like, the last 5, I don't know, GameSpot reviews, probably written by 5 different people. Doesn't detract from any value, but a lot of people won't see that. A lot of people at a glance won't even realize that, and they'll be like, you gave that gamer, but you gave that gamer, but you don't realize it's different people. But with a YouTuber, it's like, okay, this guy comes correct every time. He likes these games. He's who I trust, and it's a lot like that with it's a lot like that with streamers, especially small ones, because it's more intimate. You can ask questions in the chat and be answered. You can even create a bit of a rapport, parasocial relationship, and things like that can be established. Whereas with somebody like Ninja, good luck trying to say anything to him in this chat. Do you know what I mean? Because it's just all
the chat's going at 100 miles an hour. That you've got no chance of getting noticed in the chat or asking questions.
Exactly. So I love the idea of content creators who are on a smaller scale, and we find like dead good. We find like a huge value in that. It's like something that I'm always really, really conscious of, because not in terms of like defining success either. I could tell you a couple of stories of people who I gave codes to a year ago, and now they've got 500,000 followers on YouTube. Like, but they had about 5,000 a year ago, and there's people that you can just see the quality in them when they start. And I think that comes with like a knowledge of the space and just a general understanding and general interest. I love what I do, and I've made sure that anybody around me like is the same. And when you see somebody, you can tell that they're on the rise or they deserve to be. And I think that simply gating codes behind I don't know, some arbitrary number, 50,000 followers, 100 concurrents, I think it's pretty detrimental to the overall message, and you don't really start forging these relationships the same way. So it's something that I'm really, really proud of. Like our contact book is legitimately like close to 5,000 contacts, and every single one of them I've manually inputted their type of games that they play, their interests, every single one of them over the course of 2 years. So these smaller creators, up and coming creators, it's oh my gosh, they keep coming, and that's the best thing ever. It's like every campaign I work on, every single campaign, I've launched over 100 games. I'm finding content creators who I'm impressed by, who I've never seen before. You're never an expert. And this is because it's like such a new thing, but it's because people are still innovating. And I love that, because I don't need to know all the answers. I love learning,
Yeah, that's really encouraging and fascinating, because it leads me into my next kind of question is there like a threshold of subscribers, followers, before you even look at anybody? Or is it just a case of whoever gets in touch, you will always try and check out their content and see what they're like, even if they've got like less than 500 subscribers, like a tiny, tiny channel, but want to try and be a part of the process, want to try and be a contact for you, but you just say, look, I'm sorry, you need to hit a minimum of like 2,000 subs before we'll even engage with you? Or is that not really a factor for you?
Well, this is the thing that it becomes a bit of a tricky one, because it's completely dependent on the project. Because obviously everything that we do is at the behest of clients, and whereas some clients might be very particular about what they want to see and who and such, others might be a little bit more like, we're the cool guys, we don't care because we trust you. But I think a lot of it's down to that, and I can't take that for granted. A lot of the relationships that we have are people who trust us because we've put in good work, and as long as I can justify, and now there's a lot of I when I'm talking, because I was alone for so long, but now it's our team. This is really an ethos that we all have, that if we can justify, if somebody says, hang on, why did you give that person with 400 followers on Twitch Biomutant, which is a true story. They didn't say that, but it's a true story that we did give somebody with 400 followers Biomutant. And it's because, whoa, look at this. Look at this. Look at what they've done. They've custom made this and this and this. It's not an issue, but the sort of takeaway that I found was that during the pandemic, obviously everybody has been at home, specifically in the UK. I noticed we've had like a 4 times like boom in people who are starting content creation and who maybe haven't put out a video in about 4 months now. So there's a lot of people who it's like you're not taking a chance on them, but it's like they're all very passionate when they're starting out, right? So the one thing that I always look at is like, how long have they been doing this for? Like, is it 2 weeks? Because if it's 2 weeks or fewer, I'm normally like, okay. Now, the reality of the situation is that for Biomutant, we had 6,000 requests for Biomutant. Okay. And they all like filled in a sheet or whatever. And I can't go through that. My team can't go for that. It's 3 of us. That's 2,000 requests each. Yeah. And Biomutant is one of the like 8 games that we've been doing this month. So it's
impossible, right? Yeah.
Unfortunately, it is impossible. So the process really is down to reading stuff that like the good news is a lot of content creators who are low effort in terms of their content are also pretty low effort in terms of their like application for code. They won't write anything about themselves. Hi, can I have a code or whatever? I'm really into
sure
the idea
you get that one line quite a lot. Hi, I'm such and such. Give me a code, please. Yeah.
Honestly, it happens, and sometimes it happens, and you think, "Excuse me," and then you click on their YouTube channel, and they've got like 2 million followers, and you think, is that better or worse? But I think with what it is for me, that the perfect way that you could work with us or with quite a lot of agencies, I'm sure, is to just write an engaging email or an application for a game in advance. Try if you're being serious about your content. Like I come from that background, so I know what it's like. And you work on a schedule, and you can't apply for Biomutant today. Today I've had like 100 well, before this I checked and I've forgotten again. I think it's about 160 emails overnight of requests for Biomutant from people who saw it yesterday. It's a little bit last minute now because it is launch day. And, a lot of this is down to like, a lot of content creators are also self-made. They don't know how the industry works, and that's not their fault. So I completely like always keep that in my mind. But at the same time, it's like, you've got to also kind of give some information about yourself and the channel. I think the big misstep, maybe this is a pretty villainous thing of me to say, but I don't like it when people send me too much information. Like, I don't need to know like what you had for dinner and like, this and that. Like, it's about respecting people's time. Like, if you're going to send me a media sheet and a bit of info about yourself, cool. But like, I don't know, like your whole life story, it's like nice. And it's good when I get to know you and stuff. But when you're like one of like 6,000 people, it's like a kind of a striking a balance. I guess it's kind of like almost like applying for a job in a way, but you just have to. You can't write your life story in a cover letter, but also you can't write "Hi, give job." So
it's a balance between those two, possibly.
Yeah, you know what? But a lot of this is like not content creators' fault, right? It's because like it's they're being very personable, and I think one thing that's hindered everybody is that conventions have not been on for nearly a year and a half now. Yeah. And that's normally the best place to network and meet people and meet agencies and publishers and then this is my tip to anybody listening anywhere in the world. Find like a convention like EGX or a Gamescom and go there, because it's not only for like networking, but it's about centering yourself and being where you want to be and thinking, this is where I belong. I want to be doing this. Like, I live in the middle of nowhere. I have to get on a 4-hour train to go to EGX or whatever. And I go there and I'm like, I feel like I'm at home, because it's full of people that are doing what I'm doing or people who get it. And that's another thing. I think streamers and YouTubers is very isolated. A lot of people are introverted, so they don't really realize that, how lonely it can be. But when you're out meeting other people that have got the same ambitions and goals, it helps make you like better. So that's the sort of stuff that we like to see. And you get that when you're at convention, like at Gamescom, we had like our own booth. We had like loads of people coming by, networking, and it was a really nice feeling. And then you can be personal. Then you can give me your life story. Tell me how you got here on the train, or you were watching 3 seasons of The Sopranos on the way here. That really did happen, and I loved it. But sometimes in an email, it's just really difficult to read everything. So I guess that's it. We don't look for thresholds and stuff, but we just look for sort of not even professionalism, but sort of like an organic interest as well. Because also, like, with Biomutant, a lot of people want the game, but I don't know why. Like, do they just want it because it's new and shiny, or have they been interested in it? So yeah, it's just about the personability of it, I suppose.
Yeah, 100%. And that actually opens up another interesting line of questioning, is about the remote factor, because we have been shut down pretty much for over a year now in the UK, and things are beginning to open back up slowly, gradually, but realistically, we're looking at another few months before there's way more in-person events happening. Returning to office is still quite a bit far off. Phased returns are kind of happening, but so like the networking aspect, how do you find that's been over this past year? Has there been more like online virtual events happening with Dead Good, or has it just been like, what does that process look like at the moment, and maybe going forward as well?
Well, Dead Good have always been remote because it helps with our time zones, and we work globally, right? So we work with clients all over the world. So we're spread all over the place at the moment. Our headquarters is pretty much in Montreal at this point, because during the pandemic, our company director made the move over there permanently. So in the UK, it's just me and my aforementioned colleague and sensei Matt, who's down south, right? I miss them terribly, actually. I miss my colleagues. But in terms of networking, like a lot of content creators, like I say, they're so introverted and whatnot that I've been doing fine, because my sort of networking is kind of like when people reach out about a specific game, I'll email them the code, and they're normally very happy. And then I'll be like, oh, cool. So what about you? And blah, blah. And I'll say, and this is the thing, this is the real thing. I'll look at our games lineup. We've got about 60 games, whatever. And I'll say, I think you'd like this game, this game, this game. And we get talking, and I've been doing a lot of chatting that way. But it's very difficult when everybody comes into your DMs at once, because I build a rapport with people, and then on like Biomutant launch day, everyone's like, hey, bestie, time for a code? And I'm like, oh, no, I'm not ignoring you. As for digital events, like I'm really the wrong person to ask, because I'm such a hermit, and because I come from such a like uniquely weird origin story, I like to keep it that way. It like keeps me pure and fresh. I don't like to like watch GDC talks about marketing and whatnot. Like a couple of friends of mine are really into that sort of thing. And yeah, like I all the other influencer relations people in the UK who are like what I call third party, who aren't like internal Capcom and Square, although shouts out to them. Like Disobey and whatnot, and some of the other PR agencies. I speak to them every now and then, but I'm not one for that sort of like, let's have like a games industry virtual drinks night and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Because I come at it from a real hip hop mentality. Like, I want to be the best at what I do. And, my loyalty is to influencers and stuff like that. So networking with other like industry people, no, I'm too much of a hermit for that sort of thing. But when it comes to like, speaking to like, I miss going to the THQ offices in Vienna. Do I want to get on Skype with them and have a drink? Well, it's not the same, is it? The beer's rubbish here compared to there as well. So, but I think that, yeah, when you say in the future, that's something interesting to me, because, and I don't know if you've noticed this, but it's quite funny to me. When it comes to conventions, we are sadly, getting used to it now. Not going to conventions, I think. Yeah. And there's certain people in the industry, certain colleagues of mine as well, maybe, who are a bit relieved. They're a bit like, that's good. I'm like, no, I want to go on a plane, So I just hope that we don't, as an industry, adapt too well to think, yes, let's do all these great things over Discord and whatnot. The amount of hands-off presentations we've done over Discord this past 6 months, although it's pretty efficient and obviously way cheaper, it's just not got the same spark and the same magic. Now, last year's digital E3 and whatnot, I don't know if that was good or whatever. When you look at the stats of how PAX and EGX performed on Twitch, who's to say how good that was? But
it's maybe beneficial for the people who can't travel across to LA or to Germany for Gamescom. Maybe the digital stuff is better for them, because they can just like sit on their sofa and get the presentations. But saying that, it's not the same as those behind closed doors reveals or hands-on time, where you have 10 or 20 machines all set up, and you're bringing in people to actually get to talk about it, and then they come out of the room and then they're just buzzing because of what they've seen. That is something that is so vital to not lose, I think. And I personally hope that the in-person events never go away, because EGX was the only one that myself and my friends could ever go to and network and talk to people and queue up for 3 hours to play something that is a headline game or a hidden indie game, which turned out to be Game of Show, which has happened before as well. But again, it's the atmosphere. You can't replicate the atmosphere in a digital event, and I really hope that we don't lose that going forward.
Yeah, no, you're dead right. And like me 5 years ago would hate me now for being a jaded sellout, because you're right. Like now I jump on a plane, it's all paid for and blah, blah. I think I went abroad twice in my life before my time in the industry, and now it's like double digits sort of thing. So it's just funny that, to me, from industry to industry, it's like, that's what I miss. But yeah, as a consumer, you're right. Like, it's been a ritual ever since I was young to watch E3 at my brother's house. Yeah. And that will never go away. And, it's always like, imagine queuing up for 6 hours and stuff like that. But now I'm on this side of it. I'm like, we can't lose it. My only sort of concern with this is what publishers are doing. And this applies to every publisher, I think. Just chill out a bit, because what it is it's giving people's attention span like, it's too maximalist. Like last year's E3, didn't it start like June the 7th and it ended like the 27th of August? It's 2 months of like,
really spread out.
Everyone wants a Nintendo Direct, which is great if you're Nintendo, but if you're like just some like, smaller publisher with maybe not as much like headline acts, doesn't mean that your stuff is like less valued, but it doesn't need to be spread out over 2 hours, and don't spend like 75% of your yearly budget on it and then be upset when people don't watch it. It's only because it's too much. Like, again, like it's become like the Steam store or the Nintendo eShop where you need a curator. I need someone to curate for me. Which ones am I going to be watching? Do I want to watch like 3 hours of Bandai Direct, or do I want to watch the Jeff Keighley Summer Game Show? Like, there's so much news. It's so hard to keep on top of it, and it's just such a noisy period. That was the beauty of having those physical events, is it kind of put this kind of like restriction on the time frame. And I think at the moment, I think the liberty and the freedom of being able to do what you want last year was a novelty for everybody. So we saw some really great like bootlegs, like Guerrilla Collective did some really cool stuff, and they showed up Baldur's Gate 3 there and whatever. But it was like this year, I'm hoping that it can be a bit more compact. But of course, why would you do that? If you were a publisher and you were like, right, I'll compact all my stuff the same day as Sony and Nintendo, you're not going to, are you? You're going to do it on a quiet day. So, you can't make everybody listen to that. But I just kind of wish that it was a bit more, as a consumer, as somebody who sits there and orders a pizza. Because that's another thing, Ross, let me tell you, I order a pizza to watch these events. When one's every 2 days, I put on a stone over some
That's a lot of pizza, man. You got that's a lot of snacks. That's not snacks. There's something really interesting that last year when E3 announced it was going fully digital, that I think it was Brian Altano from IGN actually made the comment that really resonated with me as well, and I probably did with you too. And he was talking about. Everybody was talking about the convenience for the viewer, the consumer, being able to see these on like an on-demand kind of basis, which is fine. But what wasn't getting mentioned that he wanted to champion is all of the networking that goes on the business side, on the floor, in closed rooms. Partnerships are made, publishing deals are made, games get greenlit, and all these other business aspects that go on, which weren't going to happen because E3 was entirely digital, and that was a real problem for the industry.
Yeah, no, you're dead right. So, like, just for scale for you, because you've not been to Gamescom, right? But the business side of Gamescom, the business area, is the size of 4 EGXs, and that's only the business-to-business size in terms of space, yeah? And then the consumer side, you could spend your entire time on that side. It's its own beast, and it is super useful because, it doesn't matter how many advancements in technology, how many VTubers there are, person to person is still the preferred method for a lot of people, right? And I think that when you're there, and that's the thing, everyone's there, everyone's got their game face on, everyone knows what they're there for, and to me, that is like the best. Yeah, that's the highlight of the job for me. When you're at these conventions, maybe not the business to business side, closing deals and all that, but going out and speaking to streamers who I've worked with a couple of times and getting a drink, to me, that's just as important, because when I write an email and I say, hey, Fred, I love your content, I mean it. But unfortunately, me and everyone else in his promotions tab is saying the exact same thing. So when you're in real life and you can show them that you've got a grasp, nothing beats the real thing. So, that is 100% it. And here's the sham that I've got to call a sham, but, I'm sure there's a more diplomatic way of saying it. The money that, like, Gamescom and whatever wanted to charge people for the digital business to business was, like, pretty much the same thing. And it was like a access to a website or whatever. You don't have the square footage that you're paying for an event stand. you're paying for square footage in pixels on the website. There's honestly, there's like a little thumbnail, and you can get a bigger thumbnail for more money and whatnot. So I just don't think that is the quite the same, because if you want to do any of that sort of networking online, you just go on Twitter or join a Discord full of industry people. So unfortunately, I don't think they've really managed to make that work as well. But it has been an effort has been made, and that's what I wanted to kind of stress. That like these hybrid events and stuff, they wanted Gamescom to go ahead as physical this year, but with the business side being digital, I think it ended up getting cancelled and turned fully digital. But that's one of the most important things. So it's I think that's a huge loss, and I don't want to speak for the whole company because I don't know how they feel about it, but I think it's a huge loss.
I'm pretty sure next year when we do roll out into more in-person events, it must come back. I think it kind of has to come back, and I really hope it does. I really do. But anyway, this has been the launch week for you of Biomutant, and we haven't really talked a massive amount about it, but I would love for you, if possible, to talk about bringing a product to market in terms of your role. How far in advance does all of that really begin, and start vetting your creators to start that marketing drive to get the word of mouth going, and then bang, it's launch day, and then, as you said, you've had 6,000 streams of content and user feedback and everything like that, coverage that you now have to navigate through, and then compile that and curate that into a post-launch marketing campaign as well. So can you explain that process and what that looks like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the crucial thing that I like to focus on here is that at Dead Good, we're really proud of the fact that a lot of the work that we do is like very organic. And so to that end, a lot of the time, we do a lot of influencer marketing. But with THQ, we work specifically on like kind of organic coverage in the sense that we reach out to people who we think might have an interest already. And to that end, I consider that PR. It's a recommendation. I'm just saying, hey, bestie, here's a game. What do you think? So THQ, as you know, part of Embracer Group, one of the companies that like their hobby is they wake up in the morning, have breakfast, and buy another company. Like they are acquiring companies faster than anybody else.
Well, I tell you, Jake, THQ Nordic will forever be in my heart forevermore because they brought back Kingdoms of Amalur, and that for me is that's all I needed. I only needed that, and therefore THQ Nordic are going to get as much praise from me as possible.
Yeah, well, so THQ Nordic, we work closely with them. There's a couple of agencies that work on the global campaigns. They're quite modular. Like we're on retainer with THQ, so we work with them all the time. But certain projects, they might hire an agency to focus on Russia or focus on Korea or whatever, depending on which regions are sort of getting interest. And so in this case, we dealt with pretty much the whole world apart from Russia, the States. Evolve PR did the States and Latin America, although a lot of Brazilian people speak to me, so I gave them ad hoc codes. And then pretty much everywhere else is us. So typically, we just end up speaking on client needs, really. So sometimes code will come in for a game 4 days before launch and they're to be sent out. That's just the nature of the beast these days because of the pandemic, because of working from home, especially when games come out in early access, and there's a lot of pressure, a lot of stakeholders, and release dates can't be pushed. Well, certain games like Biomutant, review copies have been in the wild for the best part of the month, basically. But with the understanding that this game was going to be very big, and the understanding that, again, this is like the 8th launch in May for Dead Good, we like to start really early, before even sort of. And another thing is, I don't think how we work is very, I don't know how it is for everybody else, because THQ and us have got such a long-lasting relationship. We don't have to answer to them in a way that maybe if you were like a newer agency or you were working with a different publisher, they'd want to see your entire list of targets before they approve it. But I've got such a long-lasting, good relationship with THQ that they know how we work. So basically, from October, I started compiling a list, but in emails that I write to people, we have like a list of all of our games coming up, and people can just do a little bit of window shopping and get their requests in then. So I've actually had content creators down for this since about June 2019 in a little list somewhere, and that's been getting fleshed out. But typically, without saying too much about the process, I suppose, because a bit of industry magic there. We're normally the last port of call, right? That's kind of the way it is. Like the marketing teams are working on all the fancy schmancy wall graffiti and getting Conan O'Brien or whatever they're doing, and making cast iron swords of the Darksiders weaponry. And we're the last bastion. And the reason is because a lot of the coverage these days comes from streamers, and streamers want to play the game with their community for the first time on embargo. Embargo typically a couple of days before launch, the day before, maybe even on launch. So often we'll send code out a week or two before launch, no earlier, because they'll kind of let it rot in their Steam library, and they're probably going to get a couple of other games and just forget about it. And we're not paying them, so they forget. What are we going to do? So can't go under the whip, can we? So I'm flipping. I'm conscious about that. Momentum is important to me, and I think that, sending it just the right time, but also understanding that there's a lot of YouTubers too who need to edit their video content, which is very tenuous. I edited about 10 a week when I was on YouTube, and it takes a lot of time. It's pretty much a full-time job. So we want to give code out with enough time for them to do that. So we essentially work alongside other agencies, but to keep things nice and simple, what happens a lot of the time is that it's based on region. So it's very easy to see a content creator from Poland, and we know we could just forward them to another agency or whatever. Yeah. So sometimes, though, like the plans are a lot more integrated. So THQ is probably not the best example to give you, just because like it's such a big force of people, and there's so many names. We're talking hundreds of people brought this game to market, whereas Disco Elysium, it was the developers, and it was me and company director Carly, who dealt with the entire press side, and I dealt with the entire content creator side. And that was a lot of a different process, because we had no budget. It was an indie game. It was a new IP. It had this weird art style, and we knew that it was great. We knew that it was going to be a good game. Yeah. But everyone says that, and a lot of people, no one thinks their children are ugly, if you know what I mean. So no one's going to say, well, my game's a 7 out of 10. But we, as an agency who work with hundreds of games, know, this one is like, this one is, this one's going to be like a 90 on Metacritic, not a 96. We didn't know that. But
winning the BAFTA in 2019 for the best game or best independent game, I can't remember what the exact award was. That must have helped quite a lot with the marketing push as well when it did come to consoles this year.
Well, I mean, I was supposed to go to that, I was supposed to go to that award ceremony. My first time out. My mum was proud of me. Everything didn't happen. That was just on the edge of the pandemic. Well, I mean, you know what? The beautiful thing, and I don't want to speak for Carly on the press side, because journalists are a completely different world than what I work in. But do you know what? There was a lot of organic interest this time. People come to us about Disco Elysium, and that's what. Do you know what? I was mentioning the BAFTA, but when you work globally, you realize that a lot of people actually don't even know what BAFTA is. The way that I was going off it was like, this game is like the highest rated PC game. And PC Gamer, I think a lot of people know PC Gamer all around the world, and this dethroned Divinity Original Sin 2 for best PC game of all time. That was what wild. I was saying.
Yeah, that's wild, because Div 2 was regarded as like the greatest RPG of all time when Larian Studios released that, and that's wild to think that another game comes out by a very small team that can deliver something so unique and so interesting, and it's all being curated by such a tiny team.
Yeah, exactly. It's such a labor of love for them. Like, I've never met people as passionate as Zaum. I don't think I'm likely to again. But it's absolutely great, and I love that. Dead Good had a hand in Divinity Original Sin's release. I personally helped out. I'm the only person that's good at did, but we did some stuff for Persona 5 Royal, which is another really and now Disco. So it's so cool to see like all of the high RPGs. It's like, we're a bit close to them. But with Disco, the marketing was honestly more organic than you think. That's the thing. For us, it's like, and this is something I'd say to everybody, and I guess it's easy if the product's great, right? So this is the thing. Some people ask me, like, how do I get so many people to cover our games? A lot of it's just down to the games being good or interesting. Like, that sounds, but not to talk myself out of a job, but it's just, and then the real key is just knowing who to go to. So I'm not going to reach out to like 5,000 people about this. Our contact book's about 5,000 people. I reached out to about 300 people to Disco Elysium, right? If you want to talk about reply rates, 270 of those people replied, within the first 6 days. Yeah, that's because that's the curation that we have. Like I have this like 3 strike system. I tell every content creator, if I recommend 3 bad games, block me forever. You can block me because that's how confident we are about what it is that we do. And so with Disco, honestly, there was not really any marketing like that. What we did do was kind of anti-marketing, really. We sent out a lot of thank you packs to people that covered it the first time, like hoodies and bomber jackets and stuff. So that wasn't even to like new people to get them to play. That was like a thanks for. So
thanks for making the effort and taking the time to check this thing out because it's so small. Yeah.
Exactly. So we've got out to come again because we've got Xbox and we've got Nintendo Switch out sometime soon, so I can relive all that joy again, but now of course I can go with I can say the number 1 game on Metacritic ever. So it's but these are just like little one sentence thing in my email. I think a lot of it though is down to that, so that's my secret. But what I'm doing is just so unconventional compared to like social posts or whatever. I think we put together a video of some content creators that played the game to make a little sizzle reel, and that drew up quite a lot of interest actually. Like we got about 50 people coming to us for codes, and when I say 50 people, I mean like 50 like full-time partnered Twitch streamers. Yeah. So but a lot of it's just hard work, I suppose. I know that sounds like so like not answer, but yeah.
No, well, I mean, if it's not hard work, then everybody would be doing it, right? So that's the thing. If you put the time and effort into it, then it usually pays off. Fingers crossed it does. And the fact that you're getting to work on such amazing IPs like that must be incredibly exciting, and also unexpected for you and your team.
You know what? Yeah, that's it. I mean, we're all gamers, right? Sounds a bit of a cop out, but I speak to some people in the games industry, and they're in the games industry because it's like such a lucrative media world, but they're not massive into the gaming, right? So but that's what I find super interesting. Some of the people who work in the game industry who are maybe a bit older grew up on, I don't know, like Commodore 64 or something. I don't know. Is that a thing? Yeah.
Just like me, yeah.
and their love for games runs deep. I grew up I played like the NES and the SNES and whatnot. Yeah. So that's as early as I go. But big on it. Played everything. It's all I wanted. Every birthday, just a game or whatever. And then, but you're getting this like school of people now who are like, the games industry is the biggest industry, bigger than film and whatever. So people are in it because of it being so lucrative. But they don't understand about Lionhead or Fable 1 and the importance. Or they don't know who Peter Molyneux is. So it's a crazy world. But for us, we're all big gamers. So like I'm just talking my team. We got a nice mix. Like I'm into all this sort of like chin strokey little like Total War Warhammer, and I love CRPGs. That's what's so exciting for me. Like I really do think Divinity Original Sin 2 is one of the best games ever made. My favorite game ever may be Baldur's Gate 2, and now I'm working on Baldur's Gate 3. So it things like this really are a dream. But and I love looking at new IP, and it's super fascinating. But we've got others in my team who are really into like sort of the MMO side of things, Final Fantasy, fighting games, which is like a whole different beast. Yeah, seems to be. If you're into fighting games, you're really into fighting games. But it's honestly the most it's the most exciting thing because it's so privileged to saying it, but I just love doing what I do. I love working. My favorite things in the world are talking and playing video games, and I get to do that for a job, innit? And to go around the world doing it. So I'm extremely blessed. But yeah, it's so empowering, and the IP and seeing stuff coming out now. Oh my gosh, this next generation is super exciting because it's only just starting to crank. I mean, we did get Demon Souls, which is like totally amazing, but people keep saying next gen starts now, and I'm thinking it started when Demon Souls came out, guys. Come on. So yeah, I cannot wait to see how games are going to be even bigger and better because they do it every time, don't they? So.
Yeah. So just out of curiosity, whether this is a relevant question or not, it'd just be interesting to ask. Things like initiatives like Xbox Game Pass, where things are coming day and date to launch for a subscription model. How has something like that impacted, like the work that you do, or has it had an impact? Like, what does that look like?
It's a tricky one, really, because. The only projects that I've worked on with Game Pass, right? Well, actually, no. I'm working on one this week, which I've been able to give review codes out so people can prepare content. But the two others that I've worked on, we didn't even receive the code until that day. Right. So the incentive there for content creators is incredibly quashed, especially for free. Like, so they're going live at the same time as everybody else. So, it would be good for a channel to have prepped content ready for launch, right? And then they can get their ad revenue and they can steer the opinions of people and things like that. So I actually find that it's been pretty tough in that sense because unless you're doing paid marketing stuff, a lot of it is based on being one of the first to cover it. So when you're putting I don't know, this isn't a game that I've worked on, I'm just saying it as an example, but Dragon Quest 11, if Dragon Quest 12 came out, Game Pass exclusive day one, and review code didn't go out until that day, I don't know if many content creators will do a full review because the game's like 100 hours long and blah, blah. But as a consumer, Game Pass is like beautiful. I absolutely love it. Like a bit of tapas going around and just picking. I want that little indie game. I'll have that little indie game. Oh, Dead Space 2. Thank you. But honestly, from my perspective, it's 50-50 because one of the games that I launched this week is Solasta, Crown of the Magister. It's like a 5th edition inspired turn-based tactical CRPG. Right. And that's coming out on Game Pass on day one, but it's been in early access actually since October, and the full build is been playable now for select members of press and content creators. So in a way, that's exciting because then that means content creators will be able to put out content for this game, and they might be the game looks interesting, but not interesting enough to pay £30-40 for it. The great news is it's on Game Pass, so that is very exciting to me to. On a positive side, I love that idea that and you know what as well. When you're like watching YouTube videos, you're watching these guys and they get their games for free, and they're playing 4 games a week, like ACG or something like that. Let's say ACG because this guy works hard. And then you're a big fan and you love what he says. What happens if he says 3 games are a recommend in a week? You're like, what? I got to spend like 150 quid. So it helps things be a little bit more interactive, isn't it? When there's less barriers, financial barriers and things like that. If you got all these games out on Game Pass that are being recommended and covered, knowing that it's one click away because of your subscription model, I think that's a beautiful thing. And I think that helps create a conversation because, the truth of the matter is Returnal could have had a lot of conversation about it from people who weren't just, I don't know, people on Twitter pretending they've got a PlayStation 5. If one, people could have PlayStation 5s, and 2, the game wasn't £70. If that was on Game Pass, the discourse would be entirely different. So I love Game Pass for that, for breaking down those barriers, and putting it under a tiny little £8 barrier or whatever the heck it is. And when working alongside an organic campaign like this, like with Solasta, I think it's going to get a lot of people talking. So it's exciting.
That is the beauty of Game Pass. We read and hear a lot of like analytics that are coming out from the Xbox team to say the engagement rate and the variety of gamers that are playing, just dabbling and sampling different things and discovering things they would never normally jump into is through the roof because they don't have to drop 50, 60, 70 pounds on a game that they have no idea if they're going to enjoy or not. And of course, the other side of that conversation is the accessibility aspect. Can they can play a game without knowing whether or not there's any accessibility features that they can physically actually play the game without being out of pocket about it. So I think Game Pass is really proving to be such a revolutionary, important service that Xbox are just really doing incredibly well with their messaging right now for it. It's fascinating and brilliant to see.
Yeah, Xbox, and in terms of accessibility as well, I think Xbox are ahead of the pack in the ways that they're allowing gamers to play, and it's something you're dead right. We gave Biomutant out to a couple of people specifically for the purpose of review this from the perspective of the accessibility features and things like that. So because it's super important to be informed about things like that, and I think you're right. I don't really see any downside of it apart from perhaps because it's so it does it make games a little bit less I don't know, does it add a bit of I don't know, games can seem a little bit disposable sometimes. You play a game for 10 minutes, it's not grabbing you, on to the next one. People become very non-committal. It's a little bit like the Netflix option paralysis sort of thing where you sat there, I made a tweet about this over Christmas, but it's true. My wife very kindly got me a new Xbox for Christmas. Fantastic. I'm sat there, I've got all the games in the world, I'm scrolling through it. What do I play? Well, I just downloaded Skyrim again, didn't I? So it's why? I think that's it. And I'd love to see Xbox make a bit more of a fuss about the newer games, maybe some sort of way to give a bit of a rundown of the features. I know that they've got like an internal like sort of content creation team, right? And I remember when the Xbox 360 was about, I think this might have even been pre-YouTube, maybe, or when YouTube was like not as big. They had like was it called like Inside Xbox or something? And you could like click and you could see like Mr. Pointy Head or whatever. There was like all these features inside the game, and you could click it and you could watch videos about the games that are coming out and stuff. And it was like a magazine show, something I guess that you don't really get. I'd love it if there was a bit more of a spotlight like that, so you could hear actual human beings, not like marketing spiel about the games, and see if it's for you, because that will help. I think there'll be a curation problem soon for Game Pass because it's just too vast and great.
Yeah, that's. I think you're absolutely right about things coming day and date to Game Pass, which is amazing for consumers. But does it still have that same splash, that same like launch buzz about a game is coming out? As you have to obviously buy it, but there's a big thing around it to say. It seems to get more attention if it is not on Game Pass. Whereas if something is coming day and date to Game Pass, when that announcement that it's coming is usually huge. And it can even send shockwaves across all the media outlets to say, oh my God, how is this coming to Game Pass day and date? But when it launches, it seems a little bit subdued, whereas that when Ratchet and Clank comes out on the PlayStation 5 in June, the marketing push behind that is going to be like meteoric. It's going to be everywhere. But
exactly,
you don't often see the same amount of drive if something is coming for free, quote unquote free, because it's part of a subscription to Game Pass. I remember when Gears 5 came out on the Xbox One X, I think it was, like way back. Game Pass was already around. And I remember just kind of not really bothering about it, because and that is me being a huge Gears of War fan. But I was used to being hyped up, queuing up for it, buying it, getting it, taking it home. But then thinking, well, if it's on Game Pass, I can pick it up whenever. I don't really have to. There's no agency about it, about the big titles, So it's really interesting.
That's right. Yeah, no, you're dead right. Do you want to know? Listen to this. It's a very, very sad marketing anecdote here. How I found out that Gears of War was out, because I was in Asda, right, looking to buy like a bottle of Lucozade Sport or whatever. Other drinks brands are available, and I saw some sort of like I don't know if it was Rockstar or Monster, one of them energy drinks, and it had like a Gears of War logo on it, and it said "On the ring pull double XP on Gears of War 5," and I thought, oh, Gears of War 5's out. That's how I found out. A very sad troll through like aisle 14 of Asda. But you're right, and like I absolutely loved like the Gears 2 campaigns. One of my favorite memories game, especially co-op. Gears 5, I think, had like a nice integrated co-op. Haven't even played it. I downloaded it and then just went. But if do you know what it might have been? Maybe I needed to have spent that like £40 on it, because then I'm like, I will get my money's worth. Like how people go to the gym, isn't it? I need to get my money's worth, and so maybe it's that. But I've got to say, it's a really cool thing.
Yeah. So wrapping up, Jake. Dead Good Media, you've got a couple of people on your team. What's the expansion looking like? If viewers, listeners are really interested in working for Dead Good PR, what's it looking like in terms of new roles opening up and stuff?
Oh, well, I couldn't possibly say. Well, yeah, so the team has expanded quite a bit. Yeah, we went from little old me on the influencer side to Michael and Steph joining us in January. And then, yeah, we've had one of our company directors has returned after a spell of maternity leave. So we're fully armed and operational. But we did make a bit of an expansion over to the States. And there's all sorts of complicated laws in Quebec, like I don't know if you've heard about this whole bonjour hi thing, where you've got to speak in French before you speak in English. It's actually illegal to say hi. You have to say bonjour hi if you work in a shop or something like that. And so the company Dead Good is obviously an English name, so we had to get a French translation for that to be like incorporated there. So we're actually same hotel in Quebec. Yeah. So the Montreal office is there. So yeah, our eyes are really focused on that at the moment because we are a global agency, but I feel like because we're so British, so Lillian, he's French, and until Steph and Michael join in, everyone else is British. So I think our accents kind of throw people off. So now that we're across like 3 different time zones at the moment. But yeah, you never know. There might be something coming up towards the end of the year. There might not, but we're always interested in seeing what's what. I think the beauty of when we were hiring for the assistant role for me was that, it's such a new sort of field and things like that. I think any sort of experience that isn't directly influencer relations or PR is, well, it's how you package it. So we were looking for sort of entry-level positions, which was great. We had like 400 applicants for the job, which is, considering just me and Stu, my director, going through them all, it was a lot of work, but it's a beautiful thing, and I think that's one thing I'd always consider telling people who are listening who may be interested in working in the games industry. A lot of the job applications that you see are kind of written by people who need to sound professional. Okay, not us, by the way. We didn't do this. I think in the job description I'd written something like you need to have finished Sekiro or something. But the point is, like,
I've got no hope then. I can't even get anywhere now.
You know what? Yeah, neither of my two finished it either. So I don't know why. But you look at some jobs, even entry level ones, and the wording can really throw people off and really. I dare say intimidate somebody who's not worked in the games industry before. There's a lot of speak and the way that things are wrapped up to make things seem really like a lot more confusing. So my advice in the nicest way possible is that, like, not everybody knows what they're doing as much as they think they do. So if you see an entry level role, okay, even if I didn't have the qualifications that I needed to apply for my job, just go for it, but make a very, very compelling cover letter, especially when you're going in for an entry-level job in the games industry, because you aren't the only person applying for this job who likes games, all right? Even if you do play a lot more Final Fantasy 14 online than everybody else applying, make it compelling. And a lot of it, to my personal taste anyway, boils down to like a nice cover letter. Your CV or resume or whatever is one thing, but not just for Dead Good.
Typeset it in the shape of a chocobo, and that will get you noticed.
Yeah, exactly. I think I can't remember what I said in mine. I think I made some stupid video game reference in my application, actually. But in terms of what we're doing, the company is, we've just expanded. Maybe we'll expand again soon, and if we do, I welcome any applicants who are, if it was for my team at least, who are willing to just write a nice little cover letter. Because I was, a friend of mine at the moment just came out of a job. He's a community manager, so he's a bit down in the dumps about it. And I said, well, I'll have a look for you. And he's like, oh, I don't know, because they all sound really cute. I'm like, show me the job. So I'm looking at this job that he sends over, and it's an entry-level job, no experience required, community manager job. And the way that it's been written is like, it's no experience neither, but it says preferably 2 years in the industry. Yeah. So I'm like, but I think that's it. If you don't try, you'll never get into the industry. You got to try, but that initial step is so intimidating. I just wanted to say that because it's a bit gatekept sometimes. I think people don't like to imagine. Yeah, you do need to have gone and done media in uni or whatever, but you don't.
Yeah. Well, Jake, thank you very much for your time today. It's been absolutely brilliant chatting to you, buddy. So, good luck with the rest of your week because you've got a very busy week ahead of you.
I've got a lot of coffee, so don't worry. And but this is it. So now I get to watch Twitch all day and sit in a spreadsheet. So at least I've got good company. That's the
try not to order pizza all the time as well. Have an apple
we'll see
or something.
We'll see what E3 is saying. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, a massive thank you for giving us your time today to listen to this amazingly fascinating podcast. This has, of course, been the Weekend Catch-Up Club podcast. If you've enjoyed the show, give us a like, give us a follow, and maybe even give us a good rating on those Spotify channels as well. It all helps. But anyway, that's it from me. I'll be back next week with another great guest. Until next time, take care, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.